Howdy everyone, my name is Grant Shonkwiler and I'm a technical producer at id Software. This talk is entitled, How to be a Great Employee, or How Not to be an Asshole. So I do my talks a little bit different than most, and I wanted to try some new things today since I know you all wouldn't mind. So bear with me, this could be good, or maybe it could be terrible. First off, what is the plan for this talk? Well, I want to talk about who I am and share my story, which I think is important for this talk. Then I'll talk about how I got here, to this exact spot. It involves some airplanes and some other things. While doing that, we will cover what you can learn from my experience. Then we will talk about how to be an awesome employee with some help from my friends and some observations I have from leading teams over the last 10 years. All of that should take 30 to 40 minutes, then we will get to the important part, Q&A. As I said before, my talks are a little bit strange in that I want this to be interactive. Yes, I'm going to get in a groove and talk really fast with lots of slides, but if you have a question about a topic or a story, once I finish that topic, I'll offer a question. I hate when I'm at a talk and I forget my question or just stew on it for a whole time and don't focus on the talk itself. Clear? Cool? Alright, away we go. Alright, so yeah, that's a giant slide of my face. I've just always wanted a slide with just my face on it. So who am I? Wow, this is a surprisingly deep question that my therapist has been trying to get me to answer for years. So again, my name is Grant Shonkwiler. I was born just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. You can see it right there. Yes, I'm a Cincinnati Reds fan. There I plied my trade as a child for 9 years before moving across the river to Kentucky, where I lived before I moved to Full Sail. I was always an avid gamer and sports fanatic, another form of gamer, in my opinion. That's a different talk, though. But it wasn't until I messed up my buddy's Pokemon Red that I thought about making games. I was so infuriated by both my mistake and the lack of ability to fix it using player choice in the game that I sat down with my friend to write our own game. We worked for hours on a design doc that would eventually turn into Pokemon Killer, an arcade shooter where you killed every Pokemon. This picture isn't anything of mine, I stole it off the internet. After working on it for a few weeks, we sent the design doc to Sony, who promptly responded. How awesome is that as a kid? With, they don't want to be sued, so no thank you. With our dream smash, we moved on to other things. I started modding and making levels for Warcraft 2 and Tribes 2. I was quickly drawn more to two-player hero co-op maps with some form of narrative than just straight gameplay. Matches were always interesting because when people joined, I would have to explain the whole story to them. Even at that age, narrative and fun seemed like they should always be hand in hand. Around that same time as well, I started working in the music industry. Yes, that is child labor. I've worked with hundreds of bands you have never heard of, and maybe 2 or 3 you have, but I learned a lot in this profession. I was a stagehand, a roadie, a show producer, a lighting tech, an audio tech, a recording engineer, and a producer. During this time, I also played many sports, until I discovered my one true love, rugby, which has dominated my life ever since. Around my junior year of high school, I realized I didn't want to make the music industry thing a career. It was then that I realized this game dev thing that I had been doing as a hobby could be a career. I had remembered reading about Full Sail for music. I realized they had a game development program and decided that might be interesting. After a lot of research and other things, I ended up here at Full Sail. Okay, so before I go on to more about myself, yes, there's more, I want you all to do something with me. You should be sitting by someone you don't know, correct? So I want you to take the next 2 minutes for you to basically do what I just did, but much shorter. So go in turn, 1 minute each. I'll let you know when time is up. And tell everyone your story, but more importantly, hear their story. Alright, so how many of you learned something new about someone? That should be all of you, by the way. How many of you found something you both had in common? This will come up later. By the way, you just networked. It's easier than you think. So back to my story. Now to my career path. So I came here to Full Sail. This is a picture of me on the day that I got my laptop, by the way, and I struggled. I was a mostly straight A student in high school, and I got here and failed the math test and had to do the pre-math class. Then I got my first C and D ever in PG1 and PG2. I was devastated. But I realized then and there one of my main takeaways for this whole talk. This shit is hard. You have to work all of the time to be good enough to be here and be good enough in the industry, period. But don't give up. If you work hard, you can get there. The other thing I quickly learned was that I wasn't the smartest person in the room. So I became friends with the smartest people in the room. I asked them to help me. I asked them to explain things to me I didn't get. I studied nonstop. I got tutored. I did whatever I had to be successful. This is as much a make sure you are aware of this part of my talk as it is anyone can do this if you work hard enough. This doesn't change after Full Sail either. I made games just like you have or will make games. And in my spare time, I wrote a lot about what I was learning. I emailed authors of articles I liked. I networked anywhere and everywhere I could. I became best friends with Rob Coble. I followed him around pretty much. Okay, that's not true, but for real, he is amazing. He gave and still gives me advice on more than just my resume. I'm going to pause for just 10 seconds here and say that guy is truly amazing. Thank you, Rob. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your support and help. The Reds won that game, by the way. And right at the start of Final Project, I got the awesome opportunity to be a CA at GDC, something I recommend all of you try to do. This gave me an instant network of over 2,000 working professionals, as well as the awesome opportunity to meet tons of new people, including some of my best friends. This picture is actually from my second year as a CA, and those people sitting near me are some of my best friends to this day. My Final Project team agreed to work on something small and polished. I believe this is key, and by the time graduation rolled around, all but 2 of the members of our team had jobs lined up. Keep in mind, teams were 5 or 6 people back then. After GDC, I sent out hundreds of resumes and actually got a few bites, but what really got me the in was when Rob hooked me up with a bunch of interviews, including Midway Games and a company called Merit Entertainment, aka Megatouch Games. I went on a few interviews and finally decided to take the offer from Megatouch as a game programmer. While there, I got to know everyone at the company really well. I got close with as many people as I could, going out to lunch and dinner with them and trying to ask their opinions and pick their brain on everything. One of the writers told me, "No one has ever talked to us before." This absolutely blew my mind. How can you make games that the writers work on and never talk to them? I knew something had to change. About a year after starting the job and about 4 games shipped as a programmer, the creative director asked me if I could help him with some problems on a game he was working on. I did everything I could to help with a game I jokingly titled Funkier Monkey, the sequel to a much-loved game called Funky Monkey. I did everything asked of me and more on this game, sacrificing sleep and free time to show the creative director that I had what it took. Soon after the title wrapped, he said he liked what I did and asked me if I wanted to help out with more games. I of course jumped at the opportunity, and with a team came up with a game I knew my mother would love called Tug of Words. I pulled from ancient mythology for our characters and brought the whole team together to hash out ideas. This was kind of an unheard of process at the time at Megatouch. The game turned out so well that finally I had the authority to start making games, but without a title. I was still just a game programmer / designer. I was no lead or producer, so I had to go about this in an interesting way. I had to get the team's buy-in on every change I wanted to make, then have them champion the ideas for me and with me. If this sounds a little something out of Game of Thrones, it kind of is. I've also heard this called leading from the second chair. The idea of wanting to serve your team more than manage them. I got to work with some great lead programmers while at Megatouch, and over time the lead programmers and myself, along with the rest of the guys who had come from Full Sail, were able to change the entire way we made games at Megatouch. I was eventually given the title lead designer and was in charge of most of the process of game development from start to finish. Flash forward a few years and 50 plus games shipped on 4 platforms, and we arrive at id. Remember how I mentioned Rob had gotten me an interview with Midway back before I graduated? Well, I didn't end up with the job, but I did end up with a bunch of new friends who I continued to keep in touch with. Side note, interviewing is an amazing way of networking. One of those friends was Carrie Barcroft, the head of HR. After Midway shut down, Carrie went to id. Every GDC, Carrie and I would hang out. Fast forward to GDC 2011, and Rob calls me and says, "Carrie and I are hanging out, you should come join us." So I do, and while hanging out with them, Carrie tells me id is interested. This isn't the first time she has mentioned this. We start to talk, and I realize this might be something I'm interested in at this point. After chatting for a while, we part ways, and my buddy Matt Brenner smacks me on the back of the head and goes, "If you pass this up, I'm kicking you out." We were roommates at the time. So after months of thinking and planning, I took the job as a technical producer on the Rage multiplayer team. I got to the studio in June. The game was scheduled to ship in October. Crunch mode was fully on. While hard and grueling, at times it was a ton of fun, and I was learning as fast as I could. Every ounce of my game development experience and all the way back to Full Sail was drawn upon. But even while things were crazy on the product, I continued to do what had worked so well before. I met as many people as I could, learned about their lives outside of work and what they loved to do, how many kids they had and such. I also became a sponge to everything our lead producer, Deke Waters, said. Deke is one of the best producers in the industry, bar none, and I was very lucky to work with him. He allowed me to try lots of new production ideas under his supervision. After Rage shipped, Deke moved on to another studio, and I was left to fill the void of a senior producer. I quickly jumped in with both feet, relying on the team that I had built a strong bond with to help me wherever I shipped. I tried lots of new things from a production standpoint, and not all of them worked, but the team was always willing to try. To this day, the management team and other producers let me run my teams however I want, and give me the opportunities I never dreamed of. Next thing I know, Coble asked me to come give this talk, and I get on a plane, and I'm here. Well, damn, that gets us here. It was a long journey, and now I feel like the most pretentious person on the planet. Okay, so I'm really not the most pretentious person on the planet. Everybody knows that's James Franco, but I feel really pretentious. So to the bread and butter of this talk. First off, what can you learn from my story? Hopefully I don't have to go into depth here. First off, making games is hard, so you have to work hard. Secondly, you aren't the smartest person in the room, so find and befriend the smartest person in the room. Better yet, befriend everyone. Networking, by the way, is just a fancy way of saying making new friends. Trust in Rob Coble. He's a great asset to the school and to all of its alumnus and current students. Go to GDC, and while at GDC, remember the parties are very important. Work on something you can be proud of, something you can show to someone and truly talk about. And lastly, sending out lots of resumes is really normal, and not hearing back is pretty normal. Next, think about how you can improve things and tell people when you figure it out. When an opportunity comes up, take it. Sometimes you have to make changes. Make sure you use the team to do this. You can't do this on your own. Maintain your friendships. No matter where you go, your friendships are important. Everyone wants a better studio and a great game. So make sure you work with them on that. Be a sponge. Wherever you go, learn as much as you can. Try things, but get feedback. It may not work right away. All right, another interactive moment. I want you to get in groups of 4 with people around you and take the next 2 minutes to talk about the things you feel you can take away from my story and apply now to your career and how to be an awesome employee. All right, now how to be awesome. So initially I was going to give a bunch of examples from my career here, and I'll give a few, but just for fun I posted the idea of this talk to Facebook and Twitter. I got over 100 responses from people all over the game industry. So I decided, what better way to talk about how to be awesome than by letting my awesome friends tell you. So first off, Sweet Willie Fitz, as Rob Coble calls him, William Fitzgerald, says, be a hub of positivity, inspiration, and support. Serving your team is the essence of leadership. Lose the ego, then lose it again. First thing I really love here is lose the ego, then lose it again. You have to understand wherever you go, you're not going to be the smartest person in the room again. And one of the big problems in this industry is people can be very egotistical. And it instantly shuts people down. If you come up thinking you're the best or the smartest, even if you are really smart, people are going to be shut down by what you have. When he says, serving your team is the essence of leadership, that is so true. I mentioned before, leading from the second chair, being a servant is the best form of leadership. People will work so much more with you if they know that you care about them. Next up, Josh Hamrick says, no matter what you think or have been told, you have plenty to learn and your coworkers have plenty to teach. So show some respect. That kind of goes back to what I was saying about losing the ego. You need to lose the ego and respect what people have to teach you. You never know when you're going to be working with someone who could be a bastion of knowledge or a pioneer in the industry. And they have plenty to teach you. And most importantly, they want to teach you. And when you get in a position where you are working with someone younger, you want to teach them, and you should. Matt Brenner, who I mentioned before was one of my roommates, said, always make friends with HR. They will be your greatest allies in the world. It's so very true. I mentioned Carrie and I becoming friends and how that led to my position currently at ID. But also while at ID, my friendship with her has allowed me to do things like come and give this talk or go to GDC or do cool things within the company that probably wouldn't happen if we didn't have that friendship. Chance Ivy says, learn what your coworkers do so you can communicate with them effectively, Kay. This pretty much sums up Chance. Chance also went to Full Sail, and some of you may know him. But what Chance means is twofold here. So first off, when he says learn what your coworkers do so you can communicate with them, he means learn a cursory basic knowledge of what it is to animate, what it is to program. Learn a little bit about all of that so you can effectively communicate. But Chance kind of does everything, so he kind of means start learning everything, so then not only can you communicate effectively, but when need be, you can fill in those positions. Plus, you might start an indie studio one day or something. Mark Googler says, be honest about what you like to work on. Enjoying a task produces better results than trudging through it. As a producer, this is incredibly true. If you tell me I really like to work on X, Y, or Z, I'm probably going to give you X, Y, and Z because I know that you're going to put your heart and soul in it and really do the best you can because you're passionate about it. You need to be honest with the people you work with, your leads and your producers, and let them know. Ray says, your manager and producer want to know when something has gone wrong. Speak up. Don't be afraid to be called a whistleblower. This kind of also pairs with the last thing about speaking honestly with your producer or manager. First off, I've never heard someone called a whistleblower in this industry for coming up to their producer and saying, hey, I think something's wrong here, or, there's an issue in this team. In fact, that's our job as a producer, is to help deal with that type of thing. So come talk to us because it's only going to make the situation less terrible or less annoying when we can finally jump in and help fix it. Jamie says, don't bitch about your project or job around your teammates in the office. You're just pulling everyone else down. That's what bars are for. Really true. Everybody has complaints about what they do, and, this isn't the perfect industry that people think it is, especially a lot of you students, and myself when I was a student. But the office isn't the place to complain about things. You're only going to really, bring everybody else down with your attitude. Plus, that's why I host Game Dev Drink Ups, so you can get together and complain about things. Trevin says, taking the time to fully understand a coworker's dissenting opinion is always worth it. Yeah, I mean, this is so true, and it kind of means, again, in twofold. Listening to a coworker's dissenting opinion, one, they could be right. Their idea could be better than yours, or you may have done something stupid and not realized it. But also, letting them speak their mind and kind of talk to you makes them feel invested and like they have been heard. Even if what they're saying is completely dumb or stupid or doesn't work for what you're doing on the project, listening to their opinion and helping them gain the knowledge of why it isn't right is only more valuable for the rest of the project. Stephen Strobel says, descriptive source control check-ins, please. This is very true. He actually grabbed me before I gave this talk and said, if you can, make it a requirement to get out of the school that you know how to give descriptive source check-ins. Because you never know when you're going to have worked until 2 a.m. and you check something in that was a fix and you checked it in as 28639. No info. And the next day your lead comes in and starts up the build, and the build crashes, and it's because of your check-in, and it just says check-in 36892 or whatever. He has no idea why you checked in that code. He has to go look at that code and figure out what the problem is. So make sure you're providing some description. It'll only help everyone. Josh Kalinski says, get to know your teammates, play games with them, have Nerf wars. It's so much easier to work when you're around friends. This is so true. When I was at Megatouch, we were just a really tight-knit group of friends. We hung out together after work. We had barbecues on the weekends, all those things. And it really made the hard situations and when things came down to the wire so much better because I knew the person by my side. It is nice that we can have Nerf wars and play games at the office. It's a way to alleviate stress, but also get to know each other. There's a group of us at ID that have been playing a game called The Resistance for over 2 years now. We play it almost every day at lunch, and let's just say we really know each other well now. Zeke Marks says, shower, wear deodorant, and brush your teeth. Very true. David Clyde kind of replied with a bunch of different things, but I like how he put this into steps. Step 1, be awesome. Step 2, pour your awesomeness into your work. Step 3, go home and recharge when you are out of awesome. You aren't helping anyone working 12 hours in a row if you're tired. Go home and let your brain work on the problem while you shower and sleep. He pretty much sums it all up there. What I really like is the fact that in that picture he's wearing a shirt that says awesome meter. But it is true. When you're crunching, you are really pouring everything that you have into the game. But you're going to hit a point where what you're doing is not productive. It's actually probably hurting yourself and the game. So make sure to take the time to recharge your batteries. Heidi McDonald, who I have several slides in here for, said, "Be fearless and fail spectacularly. When you fail, have enough of a sense of humor to laugh at yourself, but enough presence of mind to apologize if necessary and take stock of what you've learned and apply it going forward." This is so very true. Failing is so important as a programmer, as a designer, but especially as a designer. But you have to understand that if you failed and it hurt someone, you need to apologize and let the team know, hey, I'm learning from this. This isn't how this is going to work. I just wanted to try something. Let's do this. And it really is great if you can laugh off that. Brian Choi, who affectionately calls himself Panda, says, "Bring food, like baked cookies and stuff, and bring it in." So true. People love you. Heidi again says, "View your job as a privilege, not a responsibility. There are literally hundreds of people right now lining up to take your place, so you need to bring it and bring it every single day." I agree with her. I also think it is a responsibility, but it is really true. You have to be on every day. You have to be putting your best face, best self forward every day to make a great game. You're going to have bad days, that's fine, but you really need to try and bring it every day. Last one from Heidi says, "Never, ever, ever say it's not my job." This is so true. When you say it's not my job to someone, it's an instant, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want you to really do anything for me anymore. I don't want you to work with me. I had an associate producer tell me once, I asked him to do something. It was one of the first days we worked together, and he says, "That's not my job." And I looked at him and I said, "You're an associate producer. Everything's your job." I often tell people when they're talking about production that production is the lowest of the low. Your job is to serve your team. But there's one lower, and that's the associate producers. Your job is to literally do everything. I was so incensed when he said this to me that I walked over to the lead producer and I said, "I can't work with this guy ever again. This is just ridiculous. This is what he did." Well, he went and sat down with the guy, had a talk with him, and we ended up becoming friends, and he's a very talented producer to this day. Lauren says, "Don't overpromise. Know your limits and what you can realistically accomplish in a given time. You're allowed to stick up for yourself to project managers. It's a much better alternative for everyone than burning yourself out." This is really true. I had an instance not too long ago where one of the programmers, I always felt like he was taking on a lot, but he was getting through it. And he always was in the office, though, and I was a little worried about that. He approached one of the other producers and said, "Man, I keep crunching to finish this stuff for this sprint." And he goes, "Well, why? Do you have a lot to do?" And he goes, "Yeah, I think I have too much to do." Well, the other producer comes to me, tells me this story, and I go to the guy and I say, "Hey, man, you're allowed to tell me when you're getting too much work. We sit down and we talk about it, and you're allowed to say, hey, that's too much work." So we sat down and we had a long conversation about it, and moving forward, he always hit his deadlines and stopped crunching. Kim Swift said, "Don't be a prick." So Kim says this in a very almost political way, in that she's saying don't be a prick to your employees, your coworkers, anything, because it really doesn't work well. But this is also a chance for me to jump on my sexism soapbox and say, this is a male-dominated industry. If you look around the room, there's probably 90% men in here. It's a very male-dominated industry, and I know from experiences of my own friends coming to me and saying, guys, even in this field, at work, every day, at conferences, can be really huge douchebags to the women that are in our industry. You need to not do that. It's pretty simple. We need this to be a welcoming and open community for everyone, because the more viewpoints we get in, not just from women, but people from different backgrounds and ethnicities, the more viewpoints we get into this industry, the better our craft and the better our art form will be. If we're just one giant group of white heterosexual males, we're not really going to be that diversified, and we're going to keep making the same game. So don't be a prick. Andrew says, ask questions, seek mentorship, and when it's your turn in several years, offer mentorship and answers. This is huge. I personally have 5 mentors who have been helping me most of my career, and it is absolutely vital. There have been career decisions, life decisions that I've got to run by my mentors that have really helped me understand what I should do, what's the right way to move. And when you get to be a mentor, it is such a rewarding and awesome experience. I highly, highly recommend it. Joe says, passion is essential. However, you will eventually get stuck working on a project you aren't passionate about. True professionals are able to find other ways to be passionate about what they're working on beyond the subject matter alone. And this is true. You may end up working on Barbie's Fancy Dance House 22 right out of school, but you need to find what strikes your passion in it. I've worked on games that I wasn't really into, but I found something I liked, some design problem, some piece of code that really I was able to pour myself into and made the project great. Or the team. Justin said, actually use the project task management software. This is huge. When we interview people at ID, we always say, hey, you're as much a producer as the producers are. You are responsible for helping with the production of the project and understanding where things can be. Getting in the project management software for 5 minutes a day is huge. Naveen, who graduated from Full Sail with me, said, and I'm going to try and do this in the best justice that I can for him, said, don't bring your bad feelings into the office or let personal crap destroy things. If you're having a bad motherfucking day because your homegirl was tripping, etc., and a designer walks up to you with a kind of annoying question, you fucking look at them straight in the face and fucking smile and say, hey dude, how can I help you? In the end, this leads towards people wanting to work with you and also making potentially crappy situations feel a lot better. This is so true. Even if you're having a bad day, you need to put your best face forward. You can even be honest with them and say, hey, I'm not having a great day, but I'm here to work with you. I'm here to get through this. Inevitably, you're going to have your worst days when other people are having their worst days, and it can just bring things down. Andrew said, life's short, you live, you die. Don't sweat finding fun work, sweat to find what makes you tick. Offer the world a light powered by your unique motivations. Incredibly true. Alan says, always comment your code as you're working. Keep daily tabs on where your hours go. If there's ever any question, the person with the best records typically is trusted. This is really true. As a producer, if I come to two people and they both really want to do a task, it's this awesome model, and I say, well, how long did it take you last time? And one can say, oh, it took me exactly this long and show me, and the other one can't. I'm probably going to go with the person who can. Also, commenting your code is very vital for when you come back at 4 in the morning to look at your code and have no idea why you're doing such things. Jessica said, don't be afraid to ask for help from others. Always remember you are a team working towards a common goal to make the best possible product for your customer. So true, so very true. Link kind of responded to that saying, asking questions of others, I've learned that is helpful to ask, but only after you've made an effort to finding the answers for yourself. This is true. You need to ask people around you, but they're also working really hard too. So take a few minutes and really exhaust your options and figure out if you can figure it out on your own. If not, then ask the questions. Kyle Bleed says, keep a stick of deodorant in your desk drawer. Nikki says, while you're at it, keep headphones, Advil, a non-perishable snack, a sweater, and a change of clothes in your desk. Very true. I try and keep all of those things, and you never know. Being the Advil fairy is something that people love. I added a few things here at the end. I call them Grant's tips. Always act like you belong, but be humble. You want to be in this industry. You deserve to be in this industry. You've worked hard. So act like you belong when you're at a GDC party or at GDC. But be humble. You're new to this. I'm still new to this. There are other people who are smarter than you. Take the random opportunities. You never know where they're going to lead. Be friends with everyone. Very simple. Be kind. Be kind to everyone. Be curious about the world. It informs your design. It informs your worldview to just be curious and learn things. Be a well-rounded person. Do more than just play video games every day. Play a sport. Go for a walk. I don't know. Take up a weird hobby. Because I'm a producer, I wanted to throw in some tips for producers. Your job is to do the following, in my opinion. 1, keep the team happy. 2, ship on time and on budget. And 3, ship a great product. Everything else should kind of fit into those 3. All right, now for my favorite part of the talk, the thumb war. I want you to turn to the person you met at the beginning of the talk. Now take the next 2 minutes to talk through what you just learned while having it out with your thumbs. Alright, that's it for my presentation. Hopefully we have tons of time left for Q's and A's, but before I get into this part, I have to give the disclaimer for work. Please don't ask me any questions about any ZeniMax or ID products or games. Thank you.